Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Welcome back. And at this point in our program, we go around the room, introduce ourselves, our first and or our last names. I'm David Dorff. Background.
My name's Chris. I'm George.
T. Jack.
Michael.
My name is Brian.
My name is Mark. I'm Kai. I'm Tom Brown.
I'm Michael.
My name is Oswaldo.
I'm Shantanu Pugan.
My name is Pat.
My name is Jerry Jones.
I'm Clint.
My name is Roy.
My name is Eduardo.
Jose. Jim Stewart.
I'm George.
James. Howard Deeport.
I'm Kei Matsuda.
I'm Peter.
Dan.
G.
Daniel.
My name is Marty.
David.
Robert.
I'm Carl Wolf.
My name is Michael.
I'm Alsak.
Robert.
My name is David.
Peter.
I'm Lee Robbins.
Jeff.
My name is Tage Logan. I'm Jeffrey.
My name is Ray Dyer.
Did we miss anyone? Our speaker, John, has already been introduced, and so I turn the floor back to you.
Thank you. So I'm feeling pretty grateful to be here at this moment right now, and I'm curious how many people in this room are involved in sustaining this Sangha and making these Sundays possible. I saw people here setting up this morning, and I'm very grateful to you, but also behind the scenes. So how many of us are involved in the making this engagement here sustainable? So I want to bow to each and every one of you. And before I start, I want to just sort of do an inventory quickly. How was that guided meditation for you? I find that a lot in my early practice, that I was longing for more technique. And I wasn't getting it during the sits, I was getting it after the sits. So I'm just curious, a few words without taking up too much time. Might you have preferred simple silence?
I enjoyed it. It was a good variety. It led me deeper than custom.
I would prefer the simple silence. I found it really distracting because I think everybody's mind is in a different place.
Okay. Yes.
I found a particular piece of it helpful, which was looking at the origins of thoughts.
Yeah, that was an exercise I'm grateful to. I was just at the Garrison Institute in New York for what was the third week-long intensive of my Community Dharma Leaders Training Program. And that exercise actually came from Joseph Goldstein, and I want to honor him with it. And I found it so profound. It's like, talk about being mindful. Where does the thought actually originate? Where does the feeling originate? Can we notice that? Often in our lives, we just get swept up in them. One thought arises, it abides, and it dissipates, and another one replaces it immediately so that I know that I'm here. That's how thinking goes. And so if we can see the beginning of the thought, I felt it add great spaciousness to my meditation practice. Yes, Oswaldo.
And in addition to the focus on the birth of the thought, one thing that through your guidance, got my attention was the feeling tone leading to the thought. For a brief glimpse time, I was able to notice that feeling led to a thought.
More power to you, yes. Is it a gurgle in the stomach? Is it the noise upstairs? What is it? Where did it begin? Yeah. Another.
Yes, I typically prefer the silence without the guided meditation, but I really appreciated the permission to use the words in and out, which I found very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Those two words can hold. See, ideas come as words, so those two little words can hold all of that at bay if you're just on those two little words. It has helped me. So all of that said, for those who prefer the silence, I just invite the possibility of just allowing the voice up front to be on the back burner. It's part of the consciousness and a part of the ambient sound in a way that we couldn't control the thumping upstairs or a police car going by. It just is there. And you don't have to pay attention to it. Make something else the sort of the focus of your intention, the quiet within, so that it can all happen at once. So that's it. So mindfulness, and we're queer community here, gay men's community, and so I was thinking about mindfulness in our community, and so much came up for me, having started as a radical gay activist way back in the early 70s with the Gay Liberation Front in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where we actually elected the first openly lesbian to public office, where we had the very first Gay Pride Week that was endorsed by a city council in the nation, and how, where we've come from there, Certainly way back then, the right to, for example, fight in wars was not something we were longing for, or I wasn't anyway, And when you think about Vietnam and Iraq, at least, they're both illegal, actually, wars. So at the same time, I'm mindful that things have changed, that this don't ask, don't tell. And also, of course, the right to marry, right, is also very big. Whereas I think back in the day, we would have said, well, that's what straight people do. But the truth is that we are in the armed services. We just are. And many of us are married to one another. We just are. So really those movements are just a recognition of what is, right? And associating the right to be free as we are. So I appreciate that. Everything has a double-edged sword. I'm noticing, of course, all the work that I so wish happened 50 years ago around bullying in schools, about alliances with straight groups and, gay straight alliances in the high schools, to end the harassment, because the truth is that all the suicides that we experience in our community of our young people are really, that has not changed. It happened way back in the day, and it's also happening now. It's still happening. So, then I'm mindful of how we, as maybe seasoned gay folk, can do what we can to reach out to younger people, to let them know that things get better, that it's okay, that, hopefully this mindfulness practice is one of the ways that things got better for us. Also mindful of what it means to be 60. I turned 60 in October. So the other end of the spectrum. And I'm curious here, how many of us are 60 or older in the room? Raise them high. Okay, 50 or older. 40 or older. 30 or older. Wow.
We'll get them later.
In a different venue. So nobody's under 30 here. It's interesting. Mindful of actually noticing that. So, the other thing for me that seems to be so prevalent constantly because many of my friends are living with HIV is, the AIDS epidemic and how we as a community moved through that very dramatic, traumatic experience and are really still living with it, And the tremendous amount of creativity we brought to what was this huge tragedy, right? Think about the people we've lost. And what other community comes to this kind of thing with, a rainbow flag 10 blocks long, or a quilt with every person, sort of memorialized in this comforter, that brought national attention. And I think about the original starts of caregiving for people living with AIDS and the hospice movement, and how we created, I know in Seattle there was the first hospice for people living with AIDS was developed, and very cutting edge around all the things that were needed to make sure people were cared for. And one of them was the idea of a caregiving team, that the mother and the lover and the pastor and the doctor and the nurses on the 3 shifts started to get together and talk about what it meant to provide this person with care and comfort, especially as many of them were approaching their last breath. And that idea of a care team, I think, started with us, with our response to the epidemic. It's huge to think about. On the other side of that is, sort of what does it mean then to have done all this work in prevention and to hopefully have had the numbers of infections go down, even as there's bug chasing and barebacking, that risky behavior simultaneously? How do you hold them both? Mindful of what it takes to do that without having to see a duality, right? Also mindful that, we're 30 to 40% more prone to alcohol and drug addiction in our communities, sexual addiction. That because of the systematic oppression, the marginalization, our need to self-soothe, often, not always, but often in less than skillful ways, is greater than our counterparts that don't experience that oppression. Holding that. Mindful too, I just moved to the Bay Area 3 years ago from Seattle. And mindful too about, just the real remarkable diversity around genderqueer people here in the Bay Area. How really our community has grown. I've known transsexuals since I was 19, or transvestites or drag queens were a big part of my early gay career, but noticing now how people are choosing different pronouns and wanting to be identified not one way or the other, but in a new way, that we didn't really think about years ago. And then, so those are the external, as I mentioned in the meditation, those are the external factors. And then, what are the internal factors for me, So like as I was driving here today, I was, a little anxious about talking with you and, thinking about what I was going to say, etc. And then I thought, it's about mindfulness. Can you be mindfulness about driving? That's what you're doing right now. You're crossing the bridge, My hands on the steering wheel, my foot on the pedal. When I had the inclination to be aggressive and pass somebody up, or noticing when somebody cut me off on the bridge, What does it mean to be in my body in the moment and noticing all that I'm seeing rather than the constant lost in thought on automatic pilot, right? Which we are all the time. The body is always a wonderful place to go back to. Physical sensations. Actually, the Buddha said that you've got everything you need right here. You don't need another thing. Enlightenment is available just with attention to the body. very, very cognizant of the difference between Seattle and the East Bay. I'm so glad I moved, you know. Not to denigrate Seattle in any way, but I really did need more sun. I found I was quite depressed there, diagnosed with seasonal affective disorder. And rather than being on antidepressants, I just said, well, you know, I was born on a little island in the Mediterranean. I need sun. I'm going to go where there's more sun. But, you know, it's not just the sun in the sky, actually, in the Bay Area, that really all aspects of my life are sunnier, you know. That my spiritual practice has spiked since I've come here. I've gone from, you know, maybe weekly or sitting 3 times in community to daily practice. I went with Peter through the Commit to Dharma, and now I'm in the Community Dharma Leader sitting in front of you. When, you know, it was just a couple of years ago, I was sitting right there. So it's very interesting to notice. And one of the reasons I felt the need to leave Seattle at the time was I was sitting in a community that was predominantly European American. I'm a certified diversity trainer, and I approached the leadership of the community and I said, you know, I really would like to see more reflections of myself in this room. Gay, lesbian, you know, whatever, LGBTQI, they were there, you know, they were there. But people of color were not in that community. And I began to wonder why. It actually started to physically hurt to not see more people of color in the room, you know, that I was really troubled by that. And, you know, something as simple as, you know, instituting like quarterly maybe, and each one bring one. You know, because we all have friends of color, you know, we all have friends of color. And what would it mean to invite them for a Sunday, you know, to come and or in that community? Glad to say that at this point in time, they actually have a people of color sitting group. I was like, you know, I left 3 years ago thinking I was just banging my head against the wall. Things change. Things change, you know. So what does it mean, you know, to ensure that there is a representation? Because the Dharma really is inclusive. It's for everyone. You know, and of course those of us that experience systematic marginalization and oppression, we actually need these tools more than a lot of other folks. You know, those of us in this community, we need these tools. Certainly the same is true for communities of color, you know. And it was also curious to me that, you know, so many of the teachers in the West, you know, many of them are Asian masters that have come from Asia and relocated into the West to bring the Dharma to the West. But many of them were European Americans who went to the East, who sat in Asian temples, who were taught by Asian masters in an Asian context, who were fed and clothed by an Asian community. So their gate, their reception of the Dharma actually came from people of color. And yet, they come to this country and they want to share the teachings. Well, wonderful thing. Don't we all? You know, wonderful thing. And at the same time, without an inclination to recruit, welcome, retain people of color, which is where they got the gift of the Dharma from. Interesting to be mindful of that. So, also interesting to recognize that whatever the problem is, identifying it is only half the issue. You know, mindfulness includes identifying solutions. You know? So I encourage you, this each one bring one would be so simple. It'd be interesting to see, even if you did it the first Sunday every quarter, or if you did it every Sunday, you know, be interesting. I took a workshop this past weekend on family constellations, and in my own personal life I became so mindful of how my loyalties at that moment, unidentified to my parents, were really at force in my life here at 60. And I've been doing therapy for a long time, right? But new things became clear. as, this facilitator created a picture of my parents and their experience with me in it, and then also their parents, because of course my parents were living with unspoken loyalties, often unconscious loyalties to their parents. So I became very mindful about how, just a billion causes and effects lead me to be sitting right here today, and for you to be in the room, for us here to be together, 10,000 choices that have led us to this very moment. And it's humbling to, again, the internal and the external, the conscious awareness of all that is involved with our being anywhere at any time. And also that work made it very clear to me that I am so grateful. As we explored when we were on retreat together, that the choices have led me to be where I am, and how the very painful experiences of my life history actually are quite holy and have a sacredness about them, because those were the causes and effects that led me to be here today. And honestly, there's nowhere else I'd rather be. Those, I have a lot of tragedy in my childhood. Lost a sister. I was only 1.5 years old. Disconnected with my mother because she was bereft. 3.5 years later, my father started to develop symptoms for Alzheimer's. Not even identifiable at the moment, undiagnosable. These are major things that have just really ruled my life. They have. And by looking at them now, I can see the holiness in them, the sacredness of them, without necessarily getting all caught up in that story, but also mindful of it and how it has actually steered the choices that I have made every day, without a doubt. So, I'd like to use just a little bit of time here to, me, I like small groups. And, as I was facilitating leading the meditation, I asked about the internal phenomenon and the external phenomenon, as to notice them arising, to be mindful of them. And I would like for us to just get into dyads. Just choose one person. I'd encourage you to find someone you're not that familiar with, even if you don't want to move. It might mean moving a little bit. And then just with that person, just in a couple of minutes, 2 minutes each, identify something that you are aware of that is capturing your attention, that you're mindful of in the larger world. It could be at work, it could be Occupy Wall Street, it could be the monks' protest in Burma, whatever, right? And then also identify one thing that's internal, something that you're becoming mindful of, or maybe need to be more mindful of, that is specific to your life. Okay? External, internal. And just 4 minutes. I'll ring the bell at 2 minutes so you can switch. Sure. Or at least turn around and face the circle. So I'm curious what came up. What about the larger world? What's on our minds about that? Just quickly.
Abuse in Pennsylvania.
Republican.
Yes.
2 species of rhinos have been declared extinct. One in Africa, one in Asia.
7 billion people.
Berlusconi.
It's the explosion of social justice and sustainability movements.
What about internal?
Getting better as a human being.
Generosity of spirit.
Mindful that it's quieter in the room now.
I think the complexity of being in the moment and also wanting certain security or wanting sort of to know what the future is going to look like or something. Yeah.
When you talked about your family dynamic and how it led you here, it made me reflect on how I can now do things to support my family, my parents, as they're still.
And what a gift that is. You know, the Buddha said there is no more noble task than to care for your parents. Others?
I was laid off this week, and I'm just realizing all this energy that comes with this new position I'm in life, and all the energy I'm getting from my friends.
Noticing, I'm comparing my life with my friends' lives, and how I perceive their lives to be.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. So I'm curious about whatever it was that you thought was going on in your life, that where mindfulness, where you would hope that maybe you could apply some more mindfulness, or where mindfulness would be beneficial to your life, given the specific of whatever that internal dynamic is. And I'm wondering if we can't just take a moment of silence. We'll close here shortly, but just a moment of silence right now to think about your very best next step. I don't even want to qualify it. A next step on what it would mean for you to bring mindfulness to that internal issue that you identified with your partner after we leave this room. Just a moment of silence with that. Okay. Just to make sure that our practice follows us out the door, you know? I wanted to offer just a little bit more technique. How many people are familiar with the acronym RAIN in Buddhist context? Yes. So it's helpful, especially given the exercise or the facilitation that we did during meditation. And that is recognize, right, the feeling and or the thought. Then accept it, right? Then investigate, possibly. Bring interest. And then the last, to not identify with it. It's just an arising. It's not necessarily about me. Think about the millions of choices that were made even before we were born, right? That are a part of that thought or feeling arising. So we were very good at this in Seattle because it rains a lot. Recognize, accept, bring interest or investigate, and do not take it personally. Not identify, for whatever it's worth. And the other thing is, I wonder, does anyone know the threefold bow that you might see people do? It's sort of like, I bow with my mind, I bow with the words, and then I bow with my entire body. If you didn't know. Because sometimes we do these things and it's ritualistic and we don't really know what they mean, for whatever it's worth. So, we have about 5 minutes for comments or questions.
I have a question with regard to the issue about diversity that you raised earlier. This no doubt reflects that even at advancing old age, I've not recovered from rebellion and troublemaking of the 70s. So the issue you raised about people of color has not been, I think, really an issue here, though it's a concern. The issue, however, that has been acrimoniously raised probably 10 years ago and 5 years ago and has sort of dissipated is about women, and I suppose lesbians in particular. And I wondered, as part of a Sangha that is diverse in that sense, and the annual retreats at Spirit Rock, which are diverse, if you had any thoughts about that diversity issue.
Well, I think that there are many venues where we can sit mixed gender. I'm not longing for that, but I do long to see more people of color in rooms that are that don't have a reflective diversity. It's my need. That's my arising. I don't know that anything is broken and anything needs to be fixed. I just offer the each one bring one as a possible solution to increasing diversity here. And it's not just around people of color. There's no one under 30 in the room. It's very interesting. Oh.
Thank you, Doctor.
Say that again?
You didn't ask who is above 20?
Oh, so you're in your 20s. Well, then I want to bow to you. And there's one here in this room full of I don't know how many, So, and it's interesting too, because, whenever I come across young people, and at East Bay Meditation Center where I practice mostly, there are a lot of young people, and I think, wow, God, I wish I came to this in my 20s. Wow. I can't even imagine where I'd be now. Not that I have any regrets, but to come at a young age is such a remarkable gift. And it seems to me that those of us who have the gift and are practicing in our lives, we are the ushers for the younger generation, especially in our communities, to come through that door and check it out, and to also be in a circumstance where maybe there aren't. I used to be the associate director of a gay lesbian youth program, and we were very clear that there was going to be nothing about sex in that program, that the youth were to feel safe and comfortable. that any number of things can happen at any number of places in our lives. But in that place, at the American Friends Service Committee, it was not about sexual contact. So there was a safety that was engendered. It's interesting. And also, sort of what it means to be on the other end of that spectrum. Your question brings up this, what it meant to be 20 in this community and what my life looked like then. And now, what does it mean to be 60? And, what can be felt by many of us in our older years as a, predisposition towards youth in this community that we find, and sort of being on the other end of that spectrum, So diversity comes in a lot of different forms. Frankly, I love the space as all male space. I think when I want to sit with lesbian sisters or queer folk, two-spirit, whatever, there are places where I can go to do that. This is rare, actually. There's another one at 3:30, I know, but and I've got this group that I started in Oakland. Where are the men's spaces? They're few and far between. So I cherish them.
And I just want to be clear, we're not exclusive of women. We invite them, we have inquiries, we have people who come, women who come. I think we're rather enthusiastic about welcoming them. It's just that because of makeup, they don't stick, I think.
Mm-hmm. And that's interesting.
They don't feel what they're getting, what they need.
That's interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we had the same dynamic in Seattle, that people of color would drop in, but they wouldn't come back. And there was a reason for that. All kinds of reasons for it, So what does it mean to be an ambassador, to bring the Dharma to other communities, reflective of what's going on in the broader world? Yes?
I'm just aware of how often attachments to categories get us really stuck, or just lead to the suffering, the dis-ease, the dissatisfaction with being alive and this life. And if there's a practice that you have that helps you kind of dilute that tendency to attach to categories, to move into dualistic realms, which is, that's our culture, our nature, right, wrong, good, bad. People of color, not people of color, we just move into these categories like that, and we're instantly tense, anxious, something's wrong. We're moving into judgments, and I love the image of you had mentioned in your talk, holding both, holding it all. And if there's a practice that you have that helps you in that discipline, I find it very difficult discipline for myself. I want to pick sides.
Yes, right, that's the inclination, yes. Yeah. But it's the internal external. The external is causing me to feel some way, and then recognizing the internal response. And recognizing that there's nothing wrong here. But I might have a response that includes tension, or fear, or a lack of safety, or whatever, as it is. So, and then, once I recognize the internal external, if I can, we're all human, if I'm not swept up, if I can do that, then I can see that there's no dualism. We're not in opposition. It's not a war. It's not a fight. It's both. Can I hold both? The Veda now rises, I'd rather there were more men of color in this room. I'd feel more comfortable. And the aversive is, why isn't that happening, for example? And the truth is that neutral is good too. It's sort of like, there's nothing wrong here. It just is, And if you want to see something, you ask for it, and you might get your needs met.
Yeah, well,
I hope that helps.
I'd like to follow up on this Howard's point. I feel uncomfortable proselytizing. Without getting into like a big other religion bashing, I find it very unattractive in the Christian religion in some ways, where you're sending missionaries out and you're really trying to cram your culture down into people's throats. And in a small way, I don't want to say there's no way where it feels like I'm attacking you. Seriously, because I have a lot of respect for what you said, but bringing a ethnic to GBF Day sounds uncomfortable. And again, maybe for reasons how we're talking, it seems kind of like making a us versus them thing. I'd just like the community to be available for whoever wanders in. I thought about the young people issue too. I would love to have a lot more 20-somethings in here, because I don't have a lot of contact with that generation. But I just think maybe in their lives they're not ready for a sangha like this, and maybe it comes through having a little life experience where you decide that you want to participate in a sangha like this. And I just don't feel comfortable trying to pull somebody up the street and park them down here.
Well, yeah, that I can see where that would not work, But in Oakland there are many 20-somethings at the sit, and there I sort of feel like that. I'm the older guy. It's like, when are some people like you going to be in the room? So it's curious about that, and they're all arisings. That's all they are. It's sort of like you attach to them because of your natural inclinations, whatever they are, but you can also let them go. There's both. It was just a thought. That's all. Yeah, just an offering. There's many fruit on the tree. If that one looks ripe and ready to eat, you can pluck it and have a bite. And if not, just keep walking through the orchard. It's okay too.
There's always the end in rain.
Right, exactly. That will certainly flower the orchard. Okay, so just one moment here to close up. Again, another moment of silence as we dedicate the merit of our practice today. We come here as individuals, and we join together as community to increase the peace in our own lives, to increase the mindfulness of our own lives. And as we do this, we are cognizant that increased peace and mindfulness in our lives spreads, especially in a community as large as this one, that there's a ripple effect, and that peace and mindfulness journeys into the rest of our lives and other people that we're in contact with. That we might increase the peace and mindfulness of all sentient beings in all directions, without exception. Truth is, mindfulness isn't Buddhist. There was mindfulness 2,700 years ago. Mindfulness is just human.
Thank you, John. And I hope you'll be able to stay with us for another half an hour during our social time.
Sure.
Meet some Sangha members. And I just want to say I really appreciate you bringing the topic of diversity into the room. I think it's a conversation we don't have enough. And I hope people carry it out into the other room, and also maybe when we do a small group day, we might continue that conversation. So I heard some really interesting points made this morning that I don't think I've heard before. So thank you for bringing that to us. Do we have any announcements this morning? Yes, Clint.
Well, on the subject of young people, you do a dinner once a month for something called Market Street Youth Center. It's for homeless youths that stay at Market Street. And it's like we prepare the menu, put the crew together, prepare it at the center. They have a kitchen there. So I had that project. It's been going on for maybe 25, 26 years, not always in Clark Street. If you're interested in participating in this, again, it's once a month, just being part of a team of people that put together a dinner. And the kids are great. You really do get this young energy that is wonderful. It's a very good experience for me, and I encourage people to think about participating in it.
How beautiful.
It's the third Saturday of every month.
It's just a beautiful way that this community reaches out.
Yeah, I'm the host today. Welcome everyone. There's no food you're welcome to have. And help yourself to tea, and if just please clean up with soapy water and rinse and put away back. There is a roster on the credenza, and I think there's a sign-up sheet on the credenza if you want to sign up. I will be walking off the Dharma Bowl if you all care to give. Suggested donation is $5 to $10. And I think, and then afterwards at around 12:30, some people get together and go out for lunch. So that's it.
Okay. Yes, there will be an annual GBF Thanksgiving Day potluck at my place in the East Bay. So if you'd like to come, please pick up a flyer out there. And if you have any questions, please talk to me. Now, I'd like to add a couple things very briefly. One, this event is open to all members and their friends. So if you know somebody who will be alone, for example, invite the person along. Feel free to do so. Another thing is, because this is a potluck, we like to know what people will be bringing, but also because it's a potluck, you can just call me even the day before, or even the morning of the day, and just let me know you're coming, because the format will allow that kind of flexibility. So again, if you'd like to join us, please let me know or just email me. Thank you.
Thank you once again, John, for today. Our speaker next week will be Tova Green.
So, and many of you know my mentor teacher, Larry Yang. And I just wanted to mention that I have the honor of doing a day-long with him in January at the East Bay Meditation Center. And it's called The Buddha's Journey is Our Journey. And I believe that is, it will be on Saturday, January 15th. And if you go to eastbaymeditation.org, you'll be able to, when the registration becomes available, you'll be able to register. So it would be lovely to see you there.
Jim?
Yeah. Just want to give a plug for a concert. Bill Childs, Philip Prince, and I are staying with the San Francisco Choral Society, and next weekend on Saturday at 8 and Sunday at 4 at Calvary Presbyterian at Jackson and Fillmore. We're going to do a really gorgeous concert of Mozart's Mass in C minor and a new big commissioned work, which is a series of hymns to the earth by a Finnish composer named Kortekongas. And we've been working very hard on it. And we commissioned an 18-minute piece, and it's 45 minutes. But it's coming together beautifully. Just on Saturday, people were sort of starting to cry because it's really quite gorgeous. So anyway, if that interests you.
Any other announcements? Okay, let's gather in a circle for offering the merit.
Would you like to offer?
Okay. Every time we meet, every Sunday, including this morning, our practice impacts other people, whether we realize it or not. We walk out of this room, different people than walked in. So just invite everyone to be mindful of those who aren't with us today. May they be peaceful. May they live lives of ease and peace. May they be mindful. May they be happy. May all beings of every color, of every age, of every sexual orientation live at peace and ease.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.